What's up, my friends, and welcome into the PHLY Phillies podcast. A happy Friday afternoon to you, and hello across the Delaware Valley. Tyler Zulli here with you, Andrew Frazier as well. We'll chat with Andrew in just a little bit. Of course, as always, our PHLY Phillies podcast is brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use that promo code PHLY365. Deposit just $10, bet $5, and you'll get $150 back in bonus bets. Whether your bets win or lose, you can use that bonus bet money on player props, futures, parlays, teasers, spreads, no matter what, and that's why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Hello to you all. Hello to K-Red, Futz, Ray Schumacher, everybody else in the chat, everybody in the show that's silently watching and hanging. Thank you for being here on this beautiful Friday afternoon, at least in Bensalem. I can't speak for where you are, but it is a gorgeous Friday afternoon in Bensalem. The Phils get set for a 3-game weekend series against the Toronto Blue Jays. We'll talk about that in a moment. The Phillies win 2 out of 3 against the Chicago Cubs. We'll talk about that. We also got to get into our Ace Hardware temperature check. As always, we have a new segment here called The Word of the Day, presented to us by our friends at Art of Words. That will come in a moment. And to end the show, we are going to reveal our first National League All-Star ballot. Now, I'll tell you more about that as the show progresses, but I am a big believer when it comes to All-Star ballots, you vote for the best players. Would it be wonderful to see Phillies in the All-Star game? It absolutely would. But are there any Phillies that are deserving to be All-Stars, at least in the starting 9? We'll talk about that as the show progresses. Before we start, I want to address Ray's question about Aaron Civale. I have been an Aaron Civale fan for a while, but he was actually just traded. The White Sox just acquired him today. Was acquired from the Brewers. And it's funny, too, because Civale asked out, did not want to be in Milwaukee. I don't know the reasoning. I haven't checked in on it, but did not want to be in Milwaukee. And it was somebody posted the Shane Gillis skit where he was like, oh, bleep, this is so much worse. Because you get moved from Milwaukee, who is admittedly not playing particularly well. In my, like, let me rephrase that. Milwaukee is playing better than my expectations, but I don't believe is a good team. Like, they're 37-33, and they're better. They're playing above my expectations, but I think eventually they will start to falter. So they trade Civale, and it's the Shane Gillis where it's like, oh, bleep, this is so much worse because he got sent to Chicago. And in exchange, the White Sox acquired Andrew Vaughn, the former number 3 overall pick. It's a guy that I thought would pan out. I was high on Andrew Vaughn. I believe coming out of Vanderbilt, if I am not mistaken. But I thought that Andrew Vaughn was going to be an everyday player for the White Sox, and he just wasn't. So moves on, change of scenery type of thing. He'll be with the Chicago White Sox now. So yeah, that trade actually got made about an hour ago, maybe an hour and a half ago. But Civale is heading to Chicago to play with the White Sox. All right. Let's start today. Now, we don't normally start with branded segments and things like that, sponsored segments, but I thought the most important conversation today surrounding the Phillies is not the series that we just witnessed in total. It's not the series that we're about to see, but I think it's one player in particular. So let's get to our word of the day, which is brought to us by our friends over at Art of Words. Art of Words, of course, has every style of sports memorabilia you can think of when it comes to the culmination of every Eagle ever thinking about the Link, or every Philly ever thinking about Citizens Bank Park. But it's not just Philly sports. They do the Jersey Shore and the city skyline, and anything that you want, Art of Words has you covered in beautiful designs and in beautiful word scripts. So our word of the day, brought to you by our friends over at Art of Words, is tipping. And no, I don't mean tipping in the sense of tipping your waiters and waitresses or your bartenders. Of course, I mean tipping in the sense of tipping your pitches. And the conversation about Jesus Luzardo over his previous 2 starts prior to Wednesday afternoon was there's a possibility that Jesus Luzardo was tipping some of, if not all of his pitches. And we weren't entirely sure because could it have just been 2 bad starts for Luzardo? Could it have been arm fatigue? Could it have been a combination of a bunch of different things? I think all of that is certainly plausible. But Rob Freeman, who is the pitching ninja on Twitter. If you follow Rob, you know how good of a follow he is. If you don't follow Rob, I would recommend it. I learned a ton from Rob Friedman, the pitching ninja on Twitter. I love his breakdowns, whether it's pitching breakdowns or, spin rates and things like that. It's nerdy baseball at its finest. But Rob Friedman did an excellent breakdown on Jesus Luzardo, specifically his hand placement when he comes set out of the stretch. So what he did was break down two separate outings, the outing against the Cubs, and then I believe it was the outing against the Brewers as well, was the other one, because he's wearing the cream jersey. So my estimation was it's about the one against the Brewers. And now we have two screenshots from that video that he broke down. The first one is depiction of Jesus Luzardo when he gets set. So Luzardo on the left side, you can see in the tweet, old hand position is in red. Luzardo on the left side is how he came set in the game against the Milwaukee Brewers. On the right is the Jesus Luzardo that you saw on Wednesday afternoon. First and foremost, the obvious jumps out to you. It's hand placement, right? You look at the glove and you look at where the hands are. When he comes set in that first picture, it's down compared to the second picture. So first and foremost, you're going to pick up on that, especially if Luzardo is holding the fastball grip or holding the sweeper grip or holding the slider grip in the same vein as the second picture, but the changeup was down at the belt. So that's first and foremost. You can see that right there. It's a substantial difference in where he was holding his hands and where he was coming set. Like coming set at the belt versus coming set at the letters is a significant difference for Jesus Luzardo. Now, both of these pitches are changeups. So we're going to talk about the grip in just a second. But I think aside from the obvious of pulling the glove up, what even more stands out to me is where the glove is situated inward, and especially where his hand sits. I think in the second picture, you can see Jesus Luzardo is able to generate like a hide, if you will. He's hiding the baseball better with a combination of a bunch of different things. So the right glove, or the right hand, the glove hand, is tilted up and in as opposed to kind of perpendicular to the ground. First and foremost, that's going to not allow a runner on second to see what he's working with, and it helps him control against his body without having to move and fidget around in the glove a lot. The second thing that it allows him to do when he's closer to the torso is you see he's also a little bit more like pronated. He's standing up a little bit more. And with him not as hunched over, it kind of allows him just to shift his body just a little bit to the first base side. And what he's doing there is allowing it to, he's using his chest, his torso as a natural shield. Plus you put it in the sense that he's hiding the ball in his glove a little bit better. And you can see the natural shield from that first picture. So not only is he hiding it from the runner on second by pulling it up, he's also hiding it from the hitter at the plate by not having to dig as much from where he's currently like situated with his hands. I think the more important thing in this conversation is hiding it from the runner on second, because we've talked about this plenty. It is super, super easy to pick up on a grip change or like digging. And they say digging into the glove. You can dig into the glove with the pitch grip, and you can see, right? If you're spinning the ball, you're looking for the laces. If you're digging really, really deep, you're probably throwing something off speed because you're either looking to grip up the slider, which you have to get kind of on top of, or you're looking to grip up the changeup. And depending on what type of changeup that you throw, and I believe Luzardo throws more of a straight change than a circle change, even in that, you're still trying to dig it back into the palm of your hand. So you can see the hand movement. You can see him digging into his glove. The second part, I think, which is even more noticeable, because let me rephrase that. I think it's even more noticeable when you slow it down and you do it still shot by still shot, frame by frame, because I think this is one of those blink and you'll miss it if you're not looking at it in real time. It's a whole lot easier to dictate when it's slowed down. This is the second photo here. He's pulling his hand out of the glove. Like, so first and foremost, you can legitimately on second base see when he pulls the hand out of the glove, okay, that's a change-up grip. Let me tap the helmet. Let me tap my knee. Let me do a little shuffle, like a Soto shuffle on second base. You can 1,000,000% see that that's a change-up grip. As a runner on second base, that's your job. That's what you're supposed to be doing. Like, there are times where guys even do it as a fake, as a deke, right? Where they just start making noises or moving or tapping stuff, and they're not actually looking at it. I used to do that all the time. Now, granted, I'm not a major league player, but it was something I used to do a lot where I would just get on second base, take my lead, and like tap my knee or like tap my helmet. Not like, yes, I'm trying to see what the pitch is coming, but until I figure out grips and things like that, you're just trying to throw pitchers off. You're trying to upset timing. Like pitching is upsetting timing. You can take some of that timing back when you're standing on second base or when you're hitting, when you have the ability to pick up on the pitches. So that second graphic that we just showed you, that's the craziest part to me, is the fact that he was legitimately breaking the hands. You can see the changeup grip. He has that three-finger changeup grip with the thumb and pinky underneath, and it's buried in the back of his hand like it should be, but you can legitimately see it. On the right side, it's way more tucked into the glove. It's much harder to see, and so that's harder to see for the runner on second base. It's harder to see from the hitter as well. And Rob pointed this out in the breakdown. Like you can legitimately see the pitch grip. So the ball ends up remaining buried longer and you just can't get a feel as to what the pitch grip is. And I've always been a big proponent. Now, I'm going to say this. I'm going to speak to my experiences, and there's a couple of things that go into play. First and foremost, obviously, I'm not a major league pitcher. I have never faced major league hitting or major league scouting or major league video work, right? So I can only speak to my experiences from how I viewed things as a, high school ball player and a summer league player, right? But my big thing always has been do whatever you have to do to hide the baseball for as long as you have to hide the baseball. No matter if you throw 100 or 88, you should hide the ball as long as you possibly can. I got to a point, especially because I didn't throw hard. As I got older, I had to get crafty. I had to get creative. I had to mix around with arm slots and, holds and things like that. I got to a point when I was on the mound, when I was in the stretch, I started opened up. So I'm also left-handed. So to give you a perspective, my back leg is the left, my plant leg would have been my left leg. So I started opened. Ball behind the back, doing whatever you can to hide, all that kind of stuff, right? But I started with an open stance and then came all the way across. So my right front lead leg was actually over top of my left plant leg. And all I was trying to do there was to create a little bit extra deception for the hitter. And kind of just by sheer nature of being left-handed, what it allowed me to do, because I came crossed over with the right leg, was hide the ball. So I could set the glove basically right underneath my my belt, like right at my belt, but because the leg was crossed over, you can almost naturally hide it behind that front foot, that front leg. And so it hides it from the hitter again, and it kind of almost naturally, deceptively hides it from the runner. Left-handed pitchers also are always constantly trying to cheat. That's the nicest way that I can say it. As a lefty myself, I was looking for every advantage possible to cheat on the mound without getting caught. And I'm not talking about bringing out, razor blades on the baseball or putting stuff in your hair and, using it on the ball. I'm talking about like legal, I guess legal cheating is an oxymoron, but you get my point. What you're trying to do is bend the rules without breaking them. And it's why you see a lot of lefties, Andy Pettitte, for example, like the leg dangle king, right? Where you set and you dangle and you look at the runner on first and you can go either way. You can go home or you can go to first. Luzardo got called for a balk his 2 starts ago where he was trying to do that leg dangle. So it was one thing that Rob didn't bring up in his breakdown. And I would be curious to see if it was just happened to be those pictures side by side or if it's more frequent. On the second photo, you notice the leg dangle is more perpendicular to the ground, whereas the first shot was a little bit, his right foot was dragging a little bit behind. Some guys do that intentionally. Some guys dangle the right foot backwards towards like center field almost, and try to keep their knee as straight as possible. Because the moment you cross that perpendicular line, the imaginary line that gets set up by every umpire has it different, you either got to go home or you got to go to first, but you can't balk on your way down. So I'm curious with setting up that like straight leg perpendicular break, if that was something that he was also tipping on maybe his changeup specifically. Was he was the leg dangled this way, whereas his fastball was more perpendicular? It's really hard to depict, obviously, with words as opposed to showing you. But I think that there's a chance that maybe that was part of the tip. That was part of the tipping his pitches was with the changeup specifically. He was kind of his weight shift was just a little bit different, and all of these things are looked at by video departments and scouting departments, and the hitter and the runner on second base constantly fed to the tablets to check up on these things. So listen, it could be nothing more. It could be nothing more than just one pitch. But if you see it in a 90 or 100 pitch sample size, it could be a mechanical thing from pitch to pitch. And when I mean pitch to pitch, I mean from fastball to off speed to breaking ball. I don't know if it was just the changeup that Jesus Luzardo was tipping or not. But I do know this. In the last two starts against the Blue Jays and the Milwaukee Brewers, those two teams off of the changeup were 5 for 7 with a walk. They were on base 75% of the time when the outcome pitch was a changeup. There was also a lot of hard contact. He gave up a couple of balls over 105 miles an hour off of the changeup. Against the Cubs were 2 for 8 against the changeup with an average exit velocity of 86 miles an hour. So was it him tipping pitches? Certainly possible. Certainly possible. But I think at least for the changeup's sake, I think that's something at least he noticed, he felt like he was doing, and whether he was actually tipping or not, he made the adjustment. And Caleb Cotham made the adjustment. And you saw a much better outing from Jesus Luzardo, one that was way more consistent with the first 10, 11 starts than it was the last two starts that he made against the Brewers and the Blue Jays. All right, that was our word of the day brought to you by our friends over at Ace Hardware. Our word of the day brought to you by our friends at Art of Words. We'll talk about Ace Hardware in just a little bit. Again, picture's worth 1,000 words. Art of Words proves that. So head on over to artofwords.com. Use the promo code PHLY, and you can get a discount at checkout with any, there you go, 15% with any order that you make. Ray, you joke about the Mando read. Not this block, but it's coming in just a couple ad reads. But before we get to that point, let's pause. On the other side, we're going to do our Ace Hardware temperature check. We'll start to dive into the series against the Blue Jays. And then, of course, we're going to wrap things up with our first National League All-Star ballot. And we'll ask the question, do any Phillies get the start in the All-Star game? At least for what we're as fans allowed to vote on. So we'll do that in just a second. But first, let's pause for a moment and tell you about some of our friends here at PHLY. All right, let's start with our friends over at Rocket Money, because when it comes to spending, sometimes you feel like your money is out of sight, out of mind, right? You got a daily coffee habit or your streaming subscriptions, whatever it is, it ends up adding up fast. So for me, it's the energy drinks. And I know it's not the greatest thing in the world, but I end up having at least one a day most times. Today I had my Celsius orange here. Yesterday I had the guava passion fruit, whatever it might be. I end up thinking about I end up racking up a decent bill with my energy drinks. So Rocket Money would be able to help me out with spotting those patterns and maybe doing something about it to keep more money in my pocket. So they help me with my smart money moves, and it's not just about simple spending like getting an energy drink or a coffee or a bagel each and every day. They can help you with all of your finances, help you track your spending, think about your subscriptions, and cut costs where it needs to be done and where you feel overwhelmed. So with all of the savings that you're going to get back in your pocket, Rocket Money practically pays for itself. It's a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitor your spending, and help you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. You can also easily customize and personalize your budget with custom categories that keep your spending on track, and it's going to help you see your monthly spending trends in every category to know exactly where your money is going. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when they use the app's premium feature. Don't wait. Download the Rocket Money app today and tell them that you heard it on the PHLY Phillies podcast. And again, they're going to help you cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with our friends over at Rocket Money. All right, while we're here, let's talk about Bet365, our presenting sponsor, because it's never ordinary at Bet365, and 90 million users worldwide had found out why. Because live in-game betting is the premier thing that they do. It's not all they do. I'm on Bet365 just about every day, getting the latest lines, the trends, what's working and what's not. And when you use Bet365, you can bet and live stream sports over 78 different sporting ventures. So it's not just your college sports or your pro sports. You can get in on all the action across the globe on all of those 78 different sports. And if you're thinking about an early payout offer, think about the NHL. If your team is up by 3-goal lead, you get an instant payout on straight bets. How about in the NBA? If you go up by 20, same thing, instant payout on your straight bets and parlays marked as winners. And new customers now get $150 back in bonus bets when they bet just $5, win or lose. So what you do is go to the app, Bet365, use the promo code PHLY365, deposit $10, place a bet for just $5, and whether you win or lose, you'll get $150 back in bonus bets. Those bonus bets can be used on player props, totals, spreads, parlays, so much more. That is why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 and physically located in PA. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, hello to everybody in the chat. K-Red, Ray Schumacher, Futz, Filthy McNasty, scrolling a little bit. Appreciate you all being active early in the show. And before we get to our Ace Hardware temperature check, because we're going to do that in just a second, I apologize. I want to welcome our second member of the program. That's our buddy Andrew Frazier, who is all by himself, apparently, at HLY Studios. Andrew, sorry we've all abandoned you today.
I know. What is this? I'm here. No one's here. Does anyone want to work?
Full disclosure, Andrew, I had every intention of coming in today. Every intention of doing John's show and then coming in. But I spoke to Julia, our boss, who is the producer of the PHLY Eagles show. And I said, hey, I'm going to come in after John's show this in the morning. And she goes, I swear to you, this is her words. Why? I mean, what do you mean, why? I said, I got to show up to the studio. She goes, aren't you StreamYard for John's show? I said, yes. She goes, all right, you're StreamYard for Eagles or for Phillies too.
Yeah. So it's her fault I'm here by myself then.
Yes,
thanks, Julia.
Yes,
appreciate it.
Absolutely am going to throw Julia under the bus for this situation.
As you should.
All right. So let's talk about the Luzardo thing for just a second, and then we'll move on from it. I know I talked for like 20 minutes straight. I apologize.
No, you're good.
That's not those photos that we use, and you can manipulate still shots into helping your conversation, of course, but they weren't subtle differences.
No, they weren't. We played that video that you were talking about on Anthony's show about 2 days ago, the day after he pitched, and we were looking at it, but I didn't really get to see the still like that and seeing the actual difference. I mean, just that delivery alone, when you saw him with his hand out exposed over it being more tucked in, I mean, for anyone who's on second or anyone who's looking, I mean, that's an obvious, clear as day, we know what grip he's using there. So, and like we talked about even before that game, we had mentioned his velocity was still there, his speed, everything was there. It was just like something they knew more than they should. And there it is right there in those pictures that, he was tipping the ball the entire time.
Well, and you and I did the watch along and a short pregame show on Wednesday, right before his last start, where he was really, really good. And the one thing that I said to you was, don't worry about strikeouts in this game. Worry about getting depth and length into the game. And he gave you both. Classic Jesus Luzardo stat line, right? What was it? 9 strikeouts, I think he ended up with, or 10, maybe.
10, yeah, 10.
10 strikeouts over 6 innings pitched. But the thing with the difference to me was he's a guy that uses a lot of pitches to get through 5 or 6 innings. 70 of his 99 pitches on Wednesday were strikes. But the beauty of those strikes were he was not nearly over the heart of the plate, or it was not over the heart of the plate nearly as much as he had been over the last 2 starts.
Yeah, and that's it's a good sign to see what he's been doing, to be able to bounce back from that, those 2 games that were really rough. And people, the fans and us here, we were all like, hey, can we rely on him? Because, the way the bullpen's been and everything like that, our starting pitching has been so strong. And if we were to, he got into a funk and couldn't get out of it, it would have been troublesome for the
For
Phillies.
sure. For sure. And the questions then would arise about fatigue and things like that because,
Dead
last year
arm,
he
exactly.
was injured a lot last year. Missed a bulk of the season, went on the IL twice and then was shut down, I think, in July for the rest of the year. So you're
Mhm.
right. You're talking about dead arm. You're saying, hey, are you physically prepared to go through the grind of making, 30, 31, 32 starts?
Yeah.
And I almost, obviously it's not great to see his ERA jump from 2.1 to 4.6, but I
Yeah.
almost would prefer an adaptable trend like tipping the pitches compared to dead arm or fatigue, because if it is corrected, and we hope that it is, and we saw at least in a 1 game sample size, it felt like it was, you can move on from that.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
can't do it. You can't do anything other than don't throw if your arm is truly fatigued.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And then that causes a whole other thing of messes that you have to go through, and
Sure.
who you're going to call up, who you're going to bring, all this stuff. So, no, it's really good that they figured it out. They identified the problem. Thank God for modern day technology that we can see things like this and
Mhm.
pull it out just like we were with those pictures. And, he's great. I have really just, the entire season so far, he's really been a big bright spot for this team. What he's been able to do, all his outings so far, and even going through that little rough patch and being able to like find his way through it. I see a good future with him. And I see him really helping out this team in a long, going all the way here.
It's crazy to me. He, in those 2 bad starts, gave up 20 earned runs in 5 2/3 innings.
Yeah,
And it ballooned his ERA obviously because of it. He, in his other 12 starts, has gone 73 innings pitched and given up 17 earned runs.
crazy.
And we've talked about it before, Andrew, where it was like there was a stretch of 8, 9, 10 games where he had not given up more than 3 earned runs in any start for the season. So,
Hmm.
like, if you say to me he's made 2 atrocious, because if you look at the ERA, you go 4.2, it is what it is. But then
Yeah,
if you dive deeper and you look at it and say, hey, he's made 12 really good starts and 2 god awful starts. The god awful starts on 4. It's kind of like when you're in school, right? You get 6 A's and an F, and your grade is a C plus, and you're like,
I
where did
wish I
this
got
come
6
from?
A's. Yeah,
Wow, yeah, I understood. It's like where did my C plus come from? 80% of my grades were good, and it's like, well, yeah, but you got a 12 on the
yeah,
paper. You know what I mean? So
exactly.
it looks on the surface like a 4.2 ERA it is what it is, but 73 of his 78 2/3 innings pitched this year have been very, very good.
Yeah, and those are the numbers you want to focus on. You don't want to look at the
Right.
overall. You definitely want to look at like what he's been able to
Just
achieve.
just see a ghost or something?
I have been here by myself, but um, someone walked in, and I don't know who it was.
Oh, okay.
Unless
As
I
long
am
as it
seeing a phantom. I
as
thought I
long as
saw
it
a
wasn't the
phantom of
mice.
Charlie O'Connor earlier, so it could be.
The mice have it's like the 3 people in a trench coat. It's like 3 kids in a trench coat, like little rascals trying to be a one big human.
Yeah.
The mice have formed a trench coat army.
There's enough mice here that they can make a very tall man or tall woman. So, if that was the case, it looked like a tall person. Maybe it's a slender man or something. I'm not sure.
If I don't see you tomorrow at the golf outing, we might have a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh,
All
you
right.
won't. You won't. I actually
Oh,
won't
that's
be
right. You
there.
won't be
Yeah.
there. So, okay. All right. Let's get to our Ace Hardware temperature check segment. As always, brought to us by our friends over at Ace Hardware Home Services. Whether it's heating, cooling, plumbing, electric, Ace Hardware brings the helpful hardware folks to your door. That's why they are the helpful hardware home service team. Head on over to Ace Hardware Homeservices.com to get started on your next project, where we take a look at somebody who's heating up or cooling down. And Andrew, I thought we'd do something a little bit different today with this. And I'm going to take a look at the Phillies defense as a whole. Now, let
Yeah.
me ask you before I give you the numbers.
Okay.
When your eyeballs tell you the Phillies defense has been fill in the blank,
Average.
kinder than I would say poor.
Okay. Yeah.
And I don't necessarily think it's always just the errors, right? Because if you look at the error total on the season, the Phillies are towards the bottom third,
Hmm.
which is kind of surprising considering Trey Turner's your shortstop.
Yeah.
But errors wise, they are towards the bottom third in errors committed for the season. But if you believe in the advanced metrics and things like that, and obviously it's something that I believe in, the Phillies are ranked dead last in defensive runs saved this year at a
Yeesh.
minus 45.
Oh man.
No other team is in the minus 40s. The next closest is the Athletics, who are at a minus 38. Now, for those that don't know
Oh,
what
man.
DRS is or don't quite care, I'm going to read you the definition and kind of give you the formula. This is word for word from MLB.com. DRS quantifies a player's entire defensive performance by attempting to measure how many runs a defender saved. It takes into account errors, range, outfield arm, and double playability. It differs slightly from ultimate zone rating in its formula, but the concept is the same. Don't worry about ultimate zone rating. We're not going to talk about it right now. But the formula for DRS basically takes this. It says, take, for instance, a center fielder sprints to make a nice catch on a fly ball. Then say data tells you that a similar fly ball gets caught 60% of the time. The center fielder essentially gains 0.4 points for difficulty. So it's all out of one. If they can't make the play, they lose 0.6 in terms of DRS. So at the end of the day, the player's overall score gets adjusted to the league average, and then the score gets adjusted to how many runs the once adjusted score is worth. It's a lot of jargon and things like that.
Seems like it, yeah.
But basically what it's a computer generated number to tell you if I took 100 plays and they had a routine percentage, how many times am I making the routine play? How many times am I not making the routine play? And then I take the outliers, which are extremely hard catches that I do make, and extremely easy plays that I don't make, and you smash it into a sandwich, basically. And so to be at average effectively puts you at a 0. So
Okay.
average DRS, average outs above replacement, all of those things kind of come back to 0. So let me go through some of the players on the Phillies whose DRS are not good this year. We'll start with Nick Castellanos, who according to DRS is viewed as the worst defensive right fielder in baseball at a -9. Now, I think your eyeballs tell you that Castellanos has been better than the terrible that he was in the first season as a right fielder. But I also think he's starting to slow down the balls. He's not fast. We can all agree on that. He's
No.
not very fast. But I think the routes that he is taking, which he did on purpose to try to create a play where basically he's only coming in and to his glove side. But
that slide, man, that's
right.
Yeah. I love that slide.
But his speed is really starting to cause him to not, like, routine is not routine anymore because he's simply not getting to those balls. So if you consider DRS as a metric that works for you, he is the worst right fielder and qualified right fielder in baseball. So if you don't believe in that, you can take outs above average. He's also a -8 in that, which he's been at or worse than 4 of the last 5 seasons. So he's just like, he's limited and mitigated disaster as a right fielder, but he doesn't bring you any defensive upside. So the defense is rough in terms of DRS specifically. Let's talk about the guy that I think gets the most vitriol defensively on this team is Trey Turner.
Oh.
Trey Turner is a -4 in DRS. He's tied for the 4th worst DRS amongst all of shortstop. Jacob Wilson, Willy Adames, and Bo Bichette are the only 3 that are currently worse. My eyeballs tell me that when Trey Turner has to make a rangy play, he seems to make it with fluidity.
Oh, yeah.
When Trey Turner has to make a routine play, I don't know if he starts thinking too much. I don't know if he has too much time. I don't know what it is. The difficult plays he seems to make feel more routine, and the routine plays become a circus sometimes.
Yeah, it might be just something mental. Maybe he just gets lazy with it because he's like, oh, here's just like an easy, ground ball right to me. I can just go down, grab it. And then he just doesn't really play into the play, and it just allows it to bounce out or something like that. But yeah, you are right. I mean, if he has to lunge or do anything that's like athletic, he's got it.
It's so strange. And I get it. Like, he's getting worse and worse defensively. Dombrowski talked about it without actually saying it. They know he's not their starting defensive shortstop for another 8 seasons.
No,
they know at some point he's either moving to second or left field or center field or whatever it might be. The team knows it, and we know it. And I think deep down inside, Trey Turner probably knows it. Like, nobody wants to move off the most important defensive position in the infield.
Yeah.
But I think he recognizes it as well. So Turner is probably like the most perplexing of the group, but the numbers tell you that he has struggled defensively. And what's he, second most in errors since he's joined the Phillies?
Yeah.
In terms of, I think only O'Neal Cruz is worse, I believe. And the thing with O'Neal Cruz is, especially early, like in the first probably year and a half or 2 years, O'Neal Cruz was given a little bit of room to grow because young shortstop, cannon for an arm, unbelievably rangy, unbelievably gifted, just unreal athlete who sometimes made some kind of boneheaded plays. Well, the Pirates moved him to the outfield because they wanted to utilize the glove, utilize his athleticism, and see if he could be an everyday outfielder. So if the only guy that's worse than you defensively is now an outfielder, you're kind of on the clock.
I mean, I've been waiting for them to do it. I mean, I know since we have like outfield issues now, currently trying to figure out like who's going to be the starters out there. To me, in all honesty, I feel like now would be the time to mess around with it. I don't know why they haven't tried yet. I know maybe because we just don't have somebody to go into his position, the shortstop position. But I've been waiting for the move, and I feel like time is soon.
So the one that I argue the most is and it's the easiest one. The one that I argue tends to be the most simplistic, straightforward one, which is people say flip flop Turner and stop. And I argue that for a couple of reasons. And I've said this before. I think Stott is a fine defensive shortstop. I think Stott is a legitimate Gold Glove winning elite level defensive second baseman. I
Oh
mean,
man,
you
yeah,
see the
he's
plays
great.
that he makes on a weekly basis where he is up, he's deep in the hole or, down into like right field slide, gets up, make the throw. I think
Yeah,
he's an elite defensive second baseman. I think he's a fine defensive shortstop. So like you're making second worse like you're making second significantly worse defensively while making short moderately better.
yeah,
And so if you're going to move Trey Turner, I think the likelier scenario would be let's see what he can do with defensive reps in the outfield.
yeah. I agree. I
Um,
definitely agree with that.
all right, two more guys that I wanted to point out. Actually, really one more guy because they gave Alec Boehm a -3. I think Alec Boehm is about the most average defensive third baseman you can get, which is not a bad thing,
Yeah,
considering I thought he was a butcher like 4 years ago. But he is like league average across the board in so many different metrics. Got a good arm at third base, big, strong guy.
sure.
But his outs above average is a 0. I think his league field, like his fielding run value is right at about a 0. I don't have complaints about Alec Boehm because I know what he is. Like, I don't think he makes them better defensively, but I don't think at this point in his career he's making them worse.
No, I don't. I agree with that. I agree with that
Um,
statement.
the interesting one to me, and this is why I don't take it entirely into consideration, is that Bryson Stott is a -4 on DRS. I call BS on that one. My eyeballs tell me that he's been one of the best defensive second basemen in the league for a few years now. Now, his outs above average is a 3, which ranks in the 89th percentile. So if you feel like you can, I think DRS can be a pick and choose stat because that one tells me it's crazy. The rest of them I don't have an issue with thinking about like they're not playing particularly great defense this year.
Yeah, yeah. That's a weird number for me for Stott as well. I mean, you can just if you have eyeballs, you don't need the stats. You can see what he can do. I mean, he is spectacular out there at second. So that's just a weird one to have him at the -4, like you said.
All right. So whether you like DRS or not, if I can give you another stat, because I
Sure.
understand it's a tool, it's not the complete picture. In terms of fielding run value, which is a separate stat from DRS, the Phillies rank 25th of 30 teams.
Mm.
So they're a little bit better in fielding run value, but not substantially better. So this is a defense that's not particularly strong. I mean, it has strong points. As I said, second base is a legit Gold Glove candidate. JT Realmuto is still a world-class defensive catcher, especially when it comes to throwing runners out. But you have a right fielder who's well below average. You have a shortstop who's playing well below average. Right now, one of your best defensive players in Bryce Harper is hurt, so you're trying to piecemeal first base together.
Yep.
Defensively, this team leaves a lot to be desired defensively right now.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely does. And Ray Schumacher said something in the chat earlier. He said it feels like the whole team, when it comes down to making a flashy play, these guys can do it. But they stumble every time on like routine plays. And I feel like that is very, on par with what this defense is. You can get the flashiness out of them, but when it's a standard routine, something out, they stumble.
All right, that's been our Ace Hardware temp check, brought to you by our friends over at Ace Hardware Home Services. Check in with them if you have any types of home problems, heating, cooling, air conditioning, whatever it is. Head on over to Ace Hardware Home Services.com to find out today. All right, we're going to pause for just a second. On the other side, we'll get into the Blue Jays series, and then we're going to wrap things up with the National League All-Star vote, or at least the one that I made, and it's my first of probably 2 or 3 as I get closer and closer. I'll reevaluate positionally. But we'll do that in just a second. But first, let's pause for a moment and tell you about some of our friends here at PHLY. All right, let's start with Ashley, because I know it's spring. Now it feels like summer all of a sudden. We went from, April weather to July weather in the span of about 48 hours. But you can continue to spring into savings with our friends over at Ashley. You can save up to 50% off living rooms, bedrooms, dining rooms, and you can have it all delivered for free. So you get top savings and delivery, setup, and removal. As I made mention to you before, all of my bedroom furniture, at least the new dressers that we got, were bought from Ashley, and they are really, really nice. We love the color. We love how they stand. And we're really happy with the furniture that we got, and you can get it all from Ashley while saving up to 50%. So spring into savings now at Ashley, South Jersey, and Philadelphia. Financing with approved credit. Minimum purchase is required. Some exclusions may apply. See store for complete details and hurry into Ashley, or visit ashleyfurniture.com for more information. All right. TrueMark Financial and TrueMark Financial Credit Union, an excellent place to set up whatever you're looking for. It doesn't matter if it's savings, retirement, your pension, your 401k, they'll help you with it all. But specifically with summer being here, that means it's time with your kids out of school. Maybe they're looking for a little summer education. Probably not. But whether they're out and about or hanging with their friends or thinking about picking up a summer job, it is an awesome time to teach your kids about real-world money skills and give them a little bit of financial freedom with the Greenlight debit card and money app. So if you're a TrueMark Financial member, you can get a free Greenlight account for your kids or teens, and it is a simple way for you to help manage their money, whether it's from their job or the allowance they give them or their birthday cash or whatever it might be. They're going to feel like they have a little bit of adult responsibility with the Greenlight account and the Greenlight debit card. So they'll get their own debit card. You can set up savings goals. You can track their spending, and they can learn how to budget, all while you stay in the loop from your phone. So you're still in control, but they get to have a little bit of sense of independence and freedom and learn how money works in the real world. So head on over to TrueMark.com/Greenlight to get all the details and sign up today. Don't miss the chance to set up your kids for financial success. All right, welcome back to the PHLY Phillies podcast, brought to you by our friends over at Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Let's do a quick series preview as the Phillies and the Blue Jays get set for their second series in just 10 days. So there's not a whole lot to dive into in terms of there's not a lot of mystery with this Blue Jays team right now. Nothing crazy happened with Toronto over the last 10 days to go, oh, they made a trade or they released somebody or this pitcher was scheduled to start and now they got sent down to AAA, which quite frankly, they should probably do with Bowden Francis, but that's their decision and I'm going to leave them to it. But it was 10 days ago that the Phillies and the Blue Jays started up a series. Blue Jays take 2 of 3 in Toronto. So just a little bit of a recap. Phillies take game 1, and they jump all over Bowden Francis in the first inning. They end up scoring 6 runs in the first inning. Bryce Harper homers. I think Bohm may have homered. I forget who it was, but they went back-to-back in some capacity. No, I'm sorry. It was Trey Turner and Bryce Harper. Went back-to-back. They score 6 in the first. They end up scoring 8 in the game, and they win that game fairly easily. Now, game 2 ended up being the walk-off 2-1 loss where Alejandro Kirk had the walk-off off of Jordan Romano. And then the conversation, of course, was not only did the Phillies get walked off on, but Jordan Romano took the loss and Jeff Hoffman got the win. So it was always the conversation about Hoffman versus Romano, perked itself back up again and things like that. So that game was frustrating because the Phillies had offensive chances and did nothing with them. It was a string of games in which the Phillies scored 1 run. I think they scored 1 run 3 times in 5 games. Did it against the Pirates twice and the final game against the Brewers. Really just got nothing offensively over those 2 stretches, and it's why we came on the air on Monday. It's so frustrated because it was just such a brutal weekend of like offensive ineptitude, especially considering the fact that now I'm jumping ahead to the Pirates series where you got excellent starting pitching from Ranger Suarez, excellent starting pitching for Cristopher Sanchez, and even on the bullpen game on Friday, for a bullpen that was taxed because Luzardo had pitched the night before and gave up as many runs as he did, the pitching kept you in the game and kept you in the series. Like, you gave up 9 runs in 3 games, and not only did you lose the series, you got swept. So that was frustrating. But back to the Blue Jays series for a second. Then the game 3, like we talked about, was the Luzardo game where he struggled against them as well. It was his second straight bad start. But I will give the Blue Jays credit. Toronto is playing really good baseball right now. They've won 2 more series since the Phillies series. They're winners of 5 of their last 6 series. They just swept out the Cardinals, and they took 2 of 3 against the Minnesota Twins. So, winners of 5 of their last 6 games, I should say. They're winners of 6 of their last 7 series, including the Phillies series, and they are 22-10 in their last 30 games. Not only are they 22-10 in their last 30 games, but they propelled themselves from 16-20, 16-20 to 38-30. Now they hold claim to the number 1 wild card spot in the American League, and they're just 4.5 games back of the Yankees for the American League East lead. As I said, there's not a lot that's changed with them. I would say the one thing that started kind of in the Phillies series and really has continued to go since that series is Alejandro Kirk has been on an absolute heater over the last couple of weeks. He's hit in 15 of 17 games. He has 6 multi-hit games over that stretch, and his average has risen from 277 to 325. So in a 17-game period, he rose his average. His average rose almost 50 points from 277 to 325. He's been excellent. A lot of credit to Alejandro Kirk, and I think it kind of really felt like it really kind of took off, if you will, during that Philly series and a little bit before. So thinking about the pitching matchups, the Phillies are going to see 2 of the 3 guys that they saw in the last series. They'll get Bowden Francis tomorrow, and then Jose Barrios on Sunday, who's been really good. Again this year, just kind of a guy that quietly goes about his business, posts a mid-3 ERA, ton of strikeouts, good innings guy. Barrios will pitch on Sunday. The one guy that they didn't see in the last series that they're going to see tonight is Kevin Gausman. And so Gausman comes into this one kind of like he has for pretty much the entirety of his career. Heavy fastball, heavy splitter. That's pretty much what he throws. 92% of his pitches this season have either been fastball or splitter. He also mixes in the slider about 8% of the time. He uses that primarily to right-handed hitters, kind of as the Frisbee, type of breaking ball down and away. He's at a 3.87 ERA. I would bet you that his expected numbers are probably a little bit better than that without knowing them off the top of my head. But my guess would be his expected numbers are probably a little bit better than that. They are. It's 3.6 compared to the 3.87. So a little bit better in terms of the expected numbers. He also is averaging about a strikeout per inning pitch. So nothing new from Gausman, a guy who's been around for a really, really long time. The splitter has been his best pitch this season so far. He uses it as his put-away pitch. He uses it as his swing and miss pitch. He's getting whiffs on it about 36% of the time. Opponents are hitting 156. And a large portion of the chase that he generates over a particular game or over the course of the season has come from the splitter. He also likes to throw a ton of strikes. He doesn't walk a lot of guys. He's willing to use the fastball in the zone, up in the zone. He wants to attack you early in the count and then put you away with that splitter. So he's going to make you swing the bat. So I think in this particular game, I'm not saying you have to get first pitch swing happy, but I do think that a good, reliable outcome for the Phillies would to be jump on Gausman early, especially in the first couple of innings. If he's going to pump you a lot of fastballs up in the zone, or fastballs in the zone, you got to go after them. You can't let him get to the splitter, especially when he uses the splitter when you're down in the count, because he will put you away with it. For the Phillies, Ranger Suarez gets the ball tonight. Ranger has been unfreaking believably good over his last 6 starts. So the first start against Arizona, obviously he struggled. Command wasn't quite there. It was his first start of the season after starting the year on the IL. In his last 6 starts, Ranger Suarez has given up 6 earned runs and has a 2.7 ERA on the season, even with the 7-run game in place. That's how good he's been. I think Ranger Suarez has been unheralded maybe across baseball. I think he's been that good. But he'll make a start tonight against the Blue Jays. And then tomorrow will be Cristopher Sanchez. Zach Wheeler gets the ball on Sunday on your Father's Day. 6:45 start tonight, 4:05 on Saturday, and 1:35 on Sunday. All right, we're going to pause one more time just for a second, tell you about some more of our friends. And then after we do that, we are going to get to our National League All-Star ballot. We'll run through it. I want to get your thoughts on position by position. Tell me who you think in the chat, and I'll give you my thoughts on the All-Star voting just for the National League. We'll do the American League at a later date. But first, let's pause for just a second, tell you about some more of our friends here at PHLY. All right, it's time. Whoever brought it up, it's your time to shine in the chat. It's our friends over at Mando. It's a men's deodorant brand that is hyper-focused on keeping every aspect of a man's body smelling fresh and clean. And yes, they emphasize every aspect. It overtly calls out some of your more colorful parts, your pits, your belly buttons, other places. I'm not going to be as raunchy as Jamie might do this read, or Bill Matz has done it in the past, but you know what we're talking about. And their scents are geared towards men with options like bourbon leather, clover wood, Mount Fuji, Pro Sport. And it comes in a multitude of different ways. You can get it in spray or in the classic gel stick, whatever you're looking for. They have the option that's best suited for you. It's created by a doctor who saw firsthand how normal body odor was just being misdiagnosed and mistreated, and it is clinically proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. And they want you to try America's #1 whole body deodorant formula right now. You can find it at Walmart or Target, other retailers across the country. But for the best deals, head on over to shopmando.com and you can get in on their trial pack, which comes with a deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like a mini body wash or deodorant wipes, and of course comes with free shipping. And as a special offer for you right now, you're going to get $5 off that starter pack, which equates to over 40% off of the starter pack just by using PHLY, the code at checkout at shopmando.com. Once again, please support the show and tell them that we sent you. You can smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with our friends over at Mando. All right, Empire Today, the flooring experts, because when it comes to flooring, you want to make sure you don't have to double back or triple back or quadruple back. We've all been in the big box stores, the hardware stores, where you wander the aisles aimlessly thinking about, can I get anybody to help me? And if I do get somebody to help me, are they going to be the pro, the expert, the flooring expert that I can trust? And most of the time, unfortunately, the answer to that question is no. So why is Empire Today your best bet for new floors? Because they live and breathe flooring, and they'll be with you every step of the way. It is an entirely different process than anything that you're used to. Their flooring experts will bring the showroom right to your home. You'll be able to pick out the right flooring and the right colors for your space, and you can see how it looks with your furniture in your house. You'll get precise measurements taken and have all of your questions answered, so there are no upfront prices or no upfront surprises. And speaking about upfront pricing, you get clear upfront and all-inclusive pricing, so you can schedule installation as soon as the next day. So schedule a free in-home estimate today, because sometimes things are just better at home, and PHLY listeners can receive $350 discount when they use the promo code PHLY. Restrictions do apply. Visit EmpireToday/PHLY for full details. Nope, not happening, Futz. Sorry. I have some sitting on my talk about full circle moment. There is some Mando sitting on my Ashley furniture, but no.
I was kind of hoping you would.
No. What do you want me to do? Like live on the air, put deodorant on?
Yeah. Give it to the people what they want.
Here's my armpits. Is that what you're looking for?
No grundle? I'm out.
That's how we get fired, Andrew. And probably put on lists.
Yeah, definitely.
So we're gonna stay away from that one. Anyway, let's talk about the National League All-Star Game. National League All-Star. Well, I say National League All-Star Game. Let's run that back for a second. Let's talk about the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. And specifically, we're going to get into our National League ballot today. We'll talk more about the American League ballot in just a second, but I wanted to start today with the National League ballot because I think it's the one that impacts most of our viewers. It's the one that we ask the question, can the Phillies have a starter in the National League All-Star Game when it comes to position players? Now, obviously, we don't get the ability to vote for pitchers. And if I had the ability to vote for a pitcher, I would vote for Zach Wheeler to not only make the All-Star team, but to potentially start in the All-Star Game for the National League. I understand if you want to pick Paul Skeens, he's been unbelievably good, could start 12 straight All-Star games if he wanted to. I understand if you want to pick Andrew Abbott because of the ERA being so low over the course of his last 12 starts. He's been excellent as well. I expect him to make the team. But unfortunately, we can't vote for National League or American League starting pitchers or pitchers in general when it comes to the All-Star ballot. So this is my National League All-Star ballot, and it raised the question, is there any possibility that a Phillies starting position player could make the National League All-Star team, and not only make the National League All-Star team, but be a National League starter? And as you can see by the vote that I put together, my answer to that question is no. I think there are two players that might be able to make it work. And the two players are Kyle Schwarber as the DH, who has been excellent this year, hitting just under 250 now, but home run totals are up, RBI totals are there, strikeout rates, with the exception of the month of June, have been excellent throughout most of the season. His walk rates still remain good, his on-base percentage is excellent, and he's hitting better against left-handed pitching. We've documented this before. The unfortunate part for Kyle Schwarber is that Shohei Ohtani exists. And Shohei Ohtani, once again, has been absolutely on a tear as a hitter for the Los Angeles Dodgers. So far this year, he's hitting .290 with 23 home runs. This is actually surprising how low this next number is. He has 23 home runs and only 39 RBI. I would have to take a deeper dive to see how he's hitting with runners in scoring position, or if he's simply just not able to hit with runners in scoring position. Now, I know he's leading off a lot of games or hitting second a lot of games, so that may be a factor into it. But so far this year, he has 78 hits and 269 at-bats. Again, hitting .290. On-base percentage of over .380, slugging over .620, and an OPS that is over 1 for the season. Last year, Shohei Ohtani led the National League in home runs with 54. So far this year, through the first 67 games, he's doing it again. He's got 23 home runs so far this year. He's also leading the National League in slugging, in OPS plus, in total bases, and he's right up there with the league leaders in hits, and he's also leading the league in runs scored as well. It's hard to deny that Shohei Ohtani is the National League DH for probably the foreseeable future. So then the second player that we could talk about is Trey Turner. And is Trey Turner offensively able to do enough this year so far, right about a 300 average, and I think swinging a much better bat, chasing less, whiffing less than he did a year prior? Is he able to do enough offensively to offset the poor defensive play? And I think the answer to that question might be yes, but the guy that I am turning to as my National League vote, and I hate to do this, is Francisco Lindor. Francisco Lindor is the catalyst of the New York Mets. Now, Pete Alonso is the power bat, and they brought Juan Soto to be their big-time name in. But Francisco Lindor, year in and year out, feels to be the catalyst of the New York Mets. So far this year, just 3 less hits than Shohei Ohtani does. He has 75 so far. 26 extra base hits, including 14 home runs. He's driven in 38. Has walked just 53 times through his first 67 games this year. He's hitting just under 280, an on-base percentage over 350, a slug near 500, and his OPS is 829. I have been a objective Francisco Lindor kind of truther, if you will, because I know around Philly, people don't like to give credit where credit is due, and credit is due to Francisco Lindor. He is getting my vote as the National League shortstop. Before we go on, I just want to pause for just a second, say thank you to all of our friends who are watching on our streaming platforms. If you want to head on over to allphly.com, you can watch the remainder of the show because it is officially time for overtime. Or in this case, extra innings. We'll get there eventually. I've asked for branding. We'll try to do it eventually. All right, so those are the two positions that I think a Philly could have a chance to be named the starter. Because again, remember, it is a popularity contest. And I will say this, when it comes to popularity, there may not be a more popular player in the world than Shohei Ohtani. International appeal, darn good, probably the best player in baseball to back it up. And so it makes sense as to why Shohei Ohtani likely will run away with the DH spot. I think Francisco Lindor is obvious. Everybody's less popular than Shohei Ohtani, but does Francisco Lindor have the global pull at short that somebody else may not or might? I don't know the answer to that question, but in terms of stats, when I vote for the best players. And to me right now, my shortstop would be Francisco Lindor. All right, let's run quickly through the rest of the lineup. Andrew, if you could flash that lineup one more time for me. There's a couple of no-brainers in here. There's a couple of that I feel really strongly about. Let's start with the no-brainers. The no-brainer at first base is Freddie Freeman, because stop me if you've heard this before. Freddie Freeman's leading the National League in doubles. He's got 21 doubles this year already. In his career, he has 529 doubles. He's led the National League in doubles 4 times. He's on pace to do it a 5th. He's had no less than 23 in any season. And by the way, that season was the 60-game season. He's had no less than 25 in a full season. He's gone over 30 every other year. He's been over 43 times. And back in 2023, he had 59. But he continues to do it again, leading the National League in batting average. He's hitting .347. On base percentage, well over 400. His OPS is just shy of 1 so far this year. So not even a thought about Freddie Freeman being the National League first baseman. Let's go to second base, because this was an interesting one. I really, really thought about Brendan Donovan from the St. Louis Cardinals, but Ketel Marte is killing it, despite the fact that he missed almost a month's worth of games with an injury. He's only played 42 games this year, but he already has 12 home runs. He's driven in 22, hitting nearly 300, an OPS over 1 himself, slugging .580. He also has 18 extra base hits of his 44 hits so far this year. Sometimes you're right about players and sometimes you're wrong about players, and I think you should tout when you're right and you should have accountability when you're wrong. I have been on the Ketel Marte is going to be a superstar train for a very long time. And last year, I think he busted out into superstardom and he's picked up right where he's left off. Ketel Marte is my vote as the shortstop, or as the second baseman for the National League. At third, I'm going to go with Manny Machado. Manny Machado having himself another really fine season so far this year, hitting .320, 10 home runs, 39 RBI. 28 extra base hits already so far this year. The .320, if it stays the way that it is, would be a career high for a season by a lot. And the career high that he reached in 2020, again, was only played in 60 games. So his career high in terms of 162 sample size is .298. He's currently hitting .320. He's also striking out a lot less, just 45 strikeouts so far through the first 67 games. And walking a decent bit compared to what he normally does. On base percentage is well over .380. Again, for a full year, that would be a career high. And his OPS is just shy of 900. He's broken the 900 mark a couple of times in his career. But through the first 67 games, I'm going to go with Manny Machado at shortstop, or at third base. We talked about shortstop. Let's move to the outfield. This is the one that I felt really strongly about. And PCA has busted onto the scene in a big way. He's swinging and missing a ton less. He's hitting for power. He's hitting for average. He's a menace on the base paths. And defensively, he has been really, really good. I'm going to vote for Pete Crow Armstrong. The one that maybe is the sleeper pick of this group, and there's a reason that I ended up going with him, is Elliot Ramos from the San Francisco Giants. He himself is having a really, really good year for the Giants in his second full season, batting .295, an OBP over .360, slugging at over .480. He already has 11 home runs through the first 67 games. He's on pace to get close to his season total last year. He's on pace to get close to his season total in RBI last year. He's becoming a more and more complete hitter as his career unfolds. Just 25 years old, was a first-time All-Star last year. I expect Elliot Ramos to get back into the All-Star game again, or at least I would vote for Elliot Ramos to get back into the All-Star game for the second time. Now, the guy that's going to make the All-Star team for the first time, and if you remember, again, maybe a little pat on the back, I did a video back in March that said who is going to be 5 first-time All-Stars, and the one guy that I was really, really high on was James Wood from the Washington Nationals. And James Wood is having just an unbelievable season for Washington so far. The power is there in droves. He already has 16 home runs through the first 68 games. His average has climbed over the last month. His OPS is well over 900. He's slugging well over 530. Strikes out a ton, kind of the MO with James Wood. Has already struck out 81 times in the first 68 games, but he's got 32 extra base hits. He's driven in 45. He is the power bat, and I think Washington, for as middling as they're playing right now, Washington offensively is closer than I think many would tend to believe. Between him and C.J. Abrams, Dylan Cruz is starting to come around after a really slow start. I think James Wood is going to be a perennial All-Star, and I believe this year is the first time that he's going to make that team. And then at catcher, I contemplated Hunter Goodman from the Colorado Rockies for a very long time. Home runs are there, RBI is there, but his OPS is substantially lower than Will Smith's OPS so far, even though Will Smith only has, I believe, 6 home runs so far this year. To me, at this point of his career, even at 30 years old, Will Smith is the best catcher in baseball. He leads the National League in on-base percentage at 427. He's hitting 324. His OPS is well over 900 at 929. Yes, again, as I said, he only has 6 home runs so far this year, only 19 extra base hits, but he has 58 hits in his first 178 at-bats. To me, at least in the National League, Will Smith is the best catcher. Maybe Cal Raleigh might have claim to that this season so far. He's been really, really good in the American League, of course. But I do expect Will Smith to not only make his 3rd consecutive All-Star game, but start in the All-Star team for the National League. All right, so one final time for you to check in on the National League ballot that I put together. Freddie Freeman at first base, Ketel Marte at second, Manny Machado at third, Francisco Lindor at short, Pete Crow Armstrong, Elliot Ramos, and James Wood as the outfield, Will Smith behind the plate, and Shohei Ohtani is the DH. So to answer the question, could a starter, a starting 9 player for the Phillies get into the starting lineup for the National League All-Star team? I think the answer is no, not this year. I do think that the Phillies will have representation. I believe Zach Wheeler will definitively be in. It depends on how many pitchers they're going to be willing to take from the same team. But if Ranger Suarez continues to pitch the way that he has, I think I would send him to the All-Star game as well. But to answer the question, I just don't think the Phillies have a starter amongst them in the starting 9. All right, that's going to wrap up today's show. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Real quick, we'll do a little bit of a Sixers-like roll call for K-Red and Ray Schumacher and Futz and Filthy McNasty and Everyday Met, who is in the chat once again. Hello, Everyday Met. Appreciate you for joining. At least if you're going to be here, just drop the like on the way out. You've been very cordial, and I appreciate that. If I missed anybody else, I apologize. But thank you to everybody for being here today. We'll be back on Monday for the next PHLY Phillies podcast. We'll wrap up the Blue Jays series. And by the way, a big thank you to Andrew Frazier for producing and co-hosting today's show and for seeing ghosts at the PHLY studios.
And a happy Father's Day to you. Your first Father's Day.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Yes, happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Enjoy it. I hope whatever you like to do, whether it's to golf or it's to hang out and barbecue, whatever the case may be, a happy Father's Day to all dads out there. So yes, thank you, Andrew. I appreciate that. Before I go, I know I said I was going to wrap up, but before I go, I want to send a shout out, a happy Father's Day to my dad, who you've heard me talk about plenty on this show or on Anthony's show. My dad I am my dad 30 years younger. I firmly believe that, and I mean that in the most positive, polite way possible. I look up to my dad in just about every asset of life, but I think one of the things that bonds my dad and I more than anything is this beautiful game of baseball. The love that he's instilled in it to me, the love that his dad instilled in it to him, and the hope that one day I can instill that love of the game in my son as well. So a a meaningful bond now through hopefully 4 generations, where it transcended from my grandfather to my dad to me, and again, hopefully to my son. Loves the game just as much as I do. This game has given me more than I could ever give back to it, and I think due in large part to my dad, to instilling that. So a happy Father's Day to all dads out there. A big shout out to my dad specifically. Happy Father's Day to you. Looking forward to playing golf with him tomorrow at the PHLY golf outing. As we will be there at Valley Brook, rain or shine, I think. He and I are going to hit the links together for some really sloppy, ugly golf, but I'm very much looking forward to it. Shout out to you all. Thank you so much. We are way over time. Check out the PHLY Eagles podcast, which is live now, Sixers at 3, and that will wrap up our festivities for the week. A happy Father's Day to everybody, and we'll talk to you on Monday at 1 o'clock right here on the PHLY Phillies podcast. See ya.
We all silly like the mayor.